Welcome back to Stooge Stream. This is It Worth Playing? And in this episode we look at Nitroplus Blasterz, Heroines Infinite Duel. This is a 2D fighter in the style of something like Blaze Blue or Guilty Gear on the PS4, which was apparently a Japanese arcade hit. I know very little about this title other than the fact that I found it in an EB Games, which is the equivalent of GameStop in the US or Game in the UK. Never heard of it, picked it up, started playing it. So let's pull it apart, put it back together, and see if it's worth playing. Let's start with the visual style. It's a 2D sprite game. Now, what that means is you won't see any 3D character models, you won't see any 3D backgrounds, it's all 2D sprites. This is a good thing. In the world that we live in of 3D games, it's nice to see a throwback to an older generation 2D game. The good thing with 2D sprites as well is they age really, really well. Now think about it in context of fighting games. Let's have a look at something like Street Fighter 2. Still looks pretty nice today. Have a look at Guilty Gear, the original on the PS1. Still looks really nice today. That's because they're 2D sprites. They age really, really well. Some 3D games don't age as nicely. Look at the first Tekken, for instance. It doesn't look nice. Have a look at the first Virtual Fighter. Doesn't look nice at all. The first Dead or Alive doesn't look good because 3D modeling has changed so much and we expect so much more from it that it just doesn't hold up. That's why I appreciate a game in 2D sprites, and especially clean, really nice drawn 2D sprite animation work. The animation in this game is fantastic as well. All the character movements, the jumps, the dodges, the rolls, the actual just animation and fluidity of the animation is really, really nice. Overall, the visual style of this game suits it perfectly, being the fact that it's supposed to be a crossover between manga characters, characters from visual novels and anime, all female fighting cast. And yeah, it just works. It works well. I really like the look of this game. This is a game that you won't get sick of looking at. The anime sequences when you do a 3-meter special as well. Really cool. So you pull off your 3-meter special, the game stops and gives you a 3-4 second little anime sequence that's completely, drawn and rendered in HD and all the rest of it. It looks really nice. And then cuts back to the game. It's so fluid as well. It's just really well done. Usually when you cut in and out of a game to put an animated sequence in the middle of a fighter, it really doesn't work, but it works really well in this game because it only does it sparingly and only when you're using a 3-meter super, which usually stops to have a special effect on screen anyway. So it doesn't take you out of the game at all. It's just really cool. So the artwork, we definitely give a massive thumbs up to. Let's talk about the sound, music, that type of thing. It's fine. It works. There's nothing you wouldn't expect in this game, so nothing's grindy, nothing's like, oh, that's rough. No, it works well. It's nothing super memorable. None of the sound effects are like, oh, that was not Hadouken. You're not going to hear sound effects like that you're going to remember for the rest of your life. You're not going to hear music that you're going to remember for the rest of your life, but you're also not going to hear anything that clashes with the game. And I'm more than happy with that these days. At the end of the day, as long as the tone suits the game, as far as sound effects, music, and it all meshes in nicely, you have to be happy enough with that because it can go the wrong way, which it does in a lot of titles where the music just does not suit the game and you're like, this is just awful, and you're trying to figure out how to turn it off or play your own music over it, whatever the case is. In this case, it's not, as I said, memorable. It's barely noticeable. But that's not a bad thing. When you do notice it, you're like, oh, that's cute. It blends in really well. So, look, I'm not going to give it an up or a down or anything in between. I'm just going to say it's fine. It's fine. Sound effects, music, they're fine. They work. Okay, now the most important thing with a fighter is the mechanics. How does it play? So this is a really simple fighter that's very deep at the same time. Now, normally those two things don't go hand in hand. You can't be simple and deep, but this really is. So this is a fighter that anybody that's played any fighting game pretty much can jump on and not do too badly on. Now, what do I mean? So every single character basically has the same motion for special moves. All of their special moves are down to forward, one of the action buttons, down to back, one of the action buttons, forward, down, forward, one of the action buttons. Special moves are down to forward, two of the action buttons, forward, down, forward, two of the action buttons. And 3-bar meters are down to forward, and two of the action buttons for every character. So you've got 12 playable characters and 20 support characters. The 12 playable characters, you're not going to find a huge amount of variation as far as executing their special moves. The variation comes within the combo system and the movement themselves and how the characters work. They all are so radically different. So I used one character, and look, I'm not going to remember their names, but one that had a sword, a blue outfit. She was a real close hit, strike, get back, knock back character. She moved really fast and did massive damage with her sword, but she would be left open for punishments if you missed your attacks. Then I used another character who carried a cat around, and her whole thing was staying back, throwing people or throwing cats at you. So her down to forward punch was somebody appeared out of nowhere and beat you with battens. Her down to back, oh, it's not punch, action, I should say. Her down to back action is somebody running from the other side of your block and doing a drop kick to the back of your head. And another one of her commands is throwing a cat at you, that type of thing. But she's really slow, like she's super, super slow, not very powerful either. So it's all about timing your attacks to keep the enemy back. It's not a huge combo character, though you can pull off some nice combos with cat scratches and things. This all sounds really insane, right? But it works. Now, there's only 12 playable characters, which seems like a very limited roster, especially in this day and age where we're used to fighters that have huge rosters. Like King of Fighters has, I can't remember, like 30 or 40 playable characters or something. And, you know, we're used to big rosters in fighting games. So you see 12 and you're like, that's really small. But the variation between each character is so great that those 12 playable characters, there's a lot of depth and a lot of learning in that. But then behind that, you've actually got 20 support characters. And the support characters in this game work like your Marvel vs. Capcom support characters. They rush in, do a single move, rush out. Except they're all so radically different. Again, I love Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Yeah, 2. That it can really change up the game. And when you find those characters that work with the character you're using, for instance, there's one support character that runs out, opens her mouth, and this huge beam goes 45 degrees in the air, which means if they're standing flat, it's not going to hit them. It's going to go over their head. But if you uppercut, knock them up into that, then it starts doing massive damage. And on top of that, you can jump up because it locks them in place and actually start comboing in the air on them too. You've got a double jump system in this, air combos, ground combos, cancels. The button combination is a little bit different. So you've got a light, medium, heavy, no punches, no kicks, just light, medium, heavy, and an action button, which is a modifier pretty much. Then an escape button. So the escape button you can hold down to use block, which you can block normally by going back, but this uses guard block. So when they're doing a special or something like that. And you can use it to roll. So it's a really different sort of setup that takes a little bit of getting used to, but when you do, you find that you can flow combos really well. Not only that, having a button for escape, dodge, roll, not something that's ordinary, so kind of makes this feel a little bit unique. I like the fact that this is a simple fighter. This is a sit down and you can figure it out in 5 minutes fighter. But if you want to get good at this, you're going to have to play a lot of it to learn what support characters work best for you, which character you're best suited to use. Is it one of the slower, more powerful characters? Is it a keep away character? Is it a quick in combo character like Sonic Q, who it's all about just quick in, out? What type of character suits your playstyle and what type of support suits that playstyle. How are you going to leverage your support into a combo? There's so much here for you. If you're a fighting game fan, I think you'll really enjoy this. And being a throwback to a classic 2D sprite game as well just brings me a lot of joy. Overall, I definitely think this is worth buying for fighting game fans. With a caveat, if you like games like BlazBlue and Guilty Gear, you're really going to love this. If you're more into your 3D fighters like Tekken, Virtual Fighter, Dead or Alive, Soul Calibur, this probably isn't going to be the fighter for you because it's not your move around 3D arena fighter. It's a flat 2D fighter. If you're a classic Street Fighter fan, you'll definitely like this as well. This definitely goes in the it's worth buying pile. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll have more Is It Worth Playing coming out soon. We are playing through Diablo 3 at the moment. The WCPW recap and TNA recaps are continuing as always each and every week. We'll have another episode of Stooge Cast coming up soon. The G Banks is just playing through a couple of things that he wants to discuss and just wanted to refresh on them. I'm sure I'll have a random thought at some time. There's going to be some more Star Trek Online and King of Fighters playthroughs coming up soon as well. Thanks to everybody that takes even a minute to listen to anything that we put up. We really appreciate it. If you like this, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, all of those good things. We are running a contest to give away an Atari 2600 AV modded console and 4 runner-up prize packs as well. Make sure you check out the video on that. The gist is, though, you do need to be subscribed and comment on some of our posts. Again, thank you so much. Have a great day. Welcome to Stooge Stream.